Greetings, Exiles. So I thought I'd make a quick video about the build that my monk has underwent. Now take this entire video with a pinch of salt because I'm not a professional player or any of that crazy stuff. I'm a very simple, semi-casual player, I would say. And I did not spend any currency to purchase any items or anything like that. As you can see, my build is a complete very basic, whatever you find kind of build. So at this point in this level, in this, with this character, if you were to follow the route that I followed, you should have roughly a similar build to what I have. So this is a video more for players who are in the mid game, and I would consider the mid game to be Act 4, 5, and 6, or 1, 2, and 3 Cruel. And now again, I do not think 1, 2, and 3 Cruel is going to be the equivalent of 4, 5, and 6. I believe that GGG has actually toned down the difficulty, believe it or not, so that the players can reach end game faster, so that they can experiment of how to go about the end game and what their direction is. And I think so far we can tell that the end game is not as impressive as playing through the relative acts, just because it's more fun knowing that in the acts you are leading up to a boss fight quite frequently, and then there's story to back you up and there's lore to back you up. The end game sort of feels like a slowdown from all of that, and also a bit of a disconnect from the the lore, because you're not really interacting with the bosses that you come into contact with. There's not really any dialogue, any true story or anything progressing from there. You're just sort of in this repeated cycle of trying to get from point A to point B to do larger story missions, and it just takes you a lot longer to do it. And so I feel like they did rush Act 1, 2, and 3 Cruel. And as I said, Act 4, 5, and 6, I believe, would be a little bit slower paced, and maybe at least the pace of Act 2, 3 of the game. Now, Act 1 was relatively quick. I think Act 1 is something that's very well paced, especially for new players. You'll be able to sweep through Act 1 pretty quickly. You might have some difficulty against Lachlan. Lachlan might be the first boss where players face a little bit of a challenge. But after you have beaten Lachlan, I think you pretty much will be cruising through most of Act 2, and only finding maybe certain parts difficult, especially the Faradin boss. And I think if you're well geared enough, at that point you sort of understood your character a bit more, you can figure out a way to clear it. Act 3, of course, I would say is a little bit more challenging, and if you have learned anything from Act 1 and Act 2, you will only likely be struggling at the Drowned City, where a lot of the monsters, especially the elites that you face there, are kind of difficult to fight. But once you've gotten through that hurdle, Act 1, 2, and 3 Cruel difficulty for me personally was a bit of a cruise. I absolutely just blasted through it, and I was actually shocked because I did get through a bit of like I hit a wall in somewhere in Act 1 with Lachlan. I hit a little wall in Act 2, as I said, with the Faradin boss, where I'm talking about the times where you actually die once or twice to the boss and actually stop and think for a moment, like, holy crap, this boss is tough, right? And then in Act 3, I think I died several times in the Brown City. I'm not going to lie about it. It was pretty challenging. But once I got through that, the final boss itself was not the most difficult thing for me. And then in Cruel difficulty, I figured out that the damage I was doing, like the DPS I had, was actually sufficient for me to go through the axe itself. The thing that I was actually lacking on were defenses, and that is when I found myself changing my build. Now, this is excellent if you have picked the Monk Invoker subclass, or the Ascendency as they call it in this game. If you're a Chayula player, I would say it's kind of unfortunate. Now, I wish GGG would at least allow us to do the Ascendancy trials and switch our Ascendancy class. I think, if they don't want us to just go to, the person like Doriani or the hooded one to respec, at least let us do the trial and just respec. Like, there's a lot of trial, coins that you get that don't give you an Ascendancy class, like Ascendancy points. Maybe just provide that to us so that we can switch the class to experiment a bit more with Chayula and whatnot. And I guess the same goes for every other class in the game. So that'll be my only little thing I guess I could highlight here. But yeah, so I was running Sunder my enemies, and I tested scatter them to the winds, which is absolute shite. Trust me, this is an extremely end game node. Like I think this would be should be the last node that you take, and there's a huge reason for that. Because if you read the way elemental expression works, it bases the critical hit chance, which has nothing to do with your own character's crit hit chance. This is a crit hit chance that is specific for these individual procs, and they're dependent on your strength, dexterity, and intelligence. So being a monk, there's no way you're going to rack up enough strength to actually trigger the fire damage. And because you are dex and int base, you may be able to trigger, get about 20% crit hit chance and trigger quite a bit of the arcane bolts and the icy wave. And even those don't do much damage. Like 100 damage, 100, 200 damage is nothing to be added into your skill. If it's like 1,000, that would make so much sense. So I think this is sort of an extra bit of just fun stuff thrown in. And I don't really see anyone having any value from taking this at this point in the game. I could be wrong now. As I said, I'm not a professional or anything like that. So this is just my opinion, but yeah, I don't think it's going to be useful. And Sunder My Enemies is actually really good against enemies who have elemental resistances to the types of elements that you are trying to deal. And as a monk, you'll be dealing mostly ice and lightning damage. Now, let me tell you, as time goes on, this is not very useful because you start to realize that most of the enemies will either be weak to at least one of your elements, and that means at least ice or lightning. And if you do come across an enemy who has both lightning and ice resistance, you more than likely just have to focus them down with enough damage, drop a bell on their head, and they're dead. Right, so it's very rare that you will come across an enemy, unless they're a boss maybe, who actually are resistant to both your ice and lightning, and they're so difficult for you to do damage to kill, right? Because this only ignores non-negative elemental resistances. So that means, let's say they have 20% resist whenever you crit, they have 0% resist. It doesn't pierce them. And what it does, it actually takes them into the negative. And when pierce takes them to the negatives, you actually deal more damage. This one just means you're going to do regular damage to them, and that's nothing special, trust me. So I took this out, and I went into lead me through grace, and this was insane because look at the amount of spirit I have. So lead me through grace basically takes your spirit away from your equipment. And I think when you're in Act 4, 5, 6 or 1, 2, 3 cruel difficulty, you should be able to find body armor with a high enough evasion rating. You don't need the energy shield. I'll tell you why in a bit. But get a body armor with a high enough evasion rating, and then just boost it up, rank it up, whatever you need to do. If you find something that gives you at least a 50% increase in evasion or something like that, that's good enough. I really lucked out in the, I think level 70 or something. I got one that gives me 100% increase evasion, which is absolutely bonkers. But yeah, if you get something like that, it should be able to give you enough spirit to at least run two, 3 or 4, what do you call this? Buffs. And that's insane because in the game itself, if you beat the bosses, you're gonna get like, I think the Bog Witch and maybe the Crowbell, you're gonna get like 60 spirit. I think you're gonna get like 60 or 90 spirit or something like that in total. And this one gives you, and that one works well because that's not from equipment, that's from your innate character who's beaten the boss. And then you're going to get a lot more spirit from just your equipment's evasion rating. And it's huge because look at this. I can actually run, like, I can even run 2 heralds. I can run Combat Frenzy. I'm just running Double Dancer instead of Herald of Thunder, and I'll explain why. I do lose a little bit of DPS, but this gives me a huge amount of survivability, and DPS is not my problem. I'm doing enough damage to kill the monsters that I come, to face with. So I do not see a reason to pump my damage even further because I feel like at this point, um, staying alive is more important because I know I can kill the enemies, but if I die, I'm dead. It's over, right? The mission just ends. So it's pointless if you're able to kill like hundreds of enemies and then instantly die at one point and not know what you could have done about it. Instead, if you are able to survive just an extra second to be able to put some thought into where you got to position yourself or what are you dodging or what you're looking at on screen, that extra second is going to give you a huge boost to your decision making, and that could keep you alive because you could dodge roll out of there, you could dash an enemy, you could even just kill it and brute force it to get your life back through life steal and stuff like that, because you could run something like cannibalism, which gives you 4% life recovered on kill. So or you could have a weapon that gives you leeching life, right? Like this one leeches mana. I think this one has life leech, and this is recoup as life. Yeah, I think I got rid of the life leech, but you could get life leech on your weapon. So there's ways for you to make decisions, but you need an extra split second for that, and that split second comes from your survivability and not just pure damage. So trust me on this, and then you can go into evasion. So these two nodes give you 15% plus 20%. That's about 35 increase evasion rating. This last one gives you 40 less evasion rating. This penalty is not a big deal. So I had some people who checked out one of my videos and were asking me how good is this ascendancy point, and trust me, it is absolutely insane. I think this might be the strongest point for the um, like the monk invoker class. Like maybe these are quite strong. I tried some of these and these are actually really good. They really boost your DPS, and they almost guarantee freezing, shocking, that sort of wonderful things. Meditate also gives you like double your energy shield, which is crazy. But this one, it's really cool because I can do some really amazing stuff with this. Like I really want to go to one of the tier 7 maps to show you guys, but I don't have enough waystones right now because I've been spending it. So let me just go to, if you don't mind, a slightly lower level. You will not be getting a most accurate representation, but I can at least show you what it feels like to be a sort of a demigod. So these are level 64 monsters. So I'm just going to go here. So as you can see, I'm going to run Double Dancer, and they're gonna just turn on once I enter into the map. And I'm just gonna walk through these mobs here and just stand somewhere here maybe. Yeah, can you see my life and my shield? Just observe. Just observe. So if you really, really want to be unkillable, this is the first step towards it. And again, don't get me wrong, these are enemies who are a little bit lower level. They don't have the accuracy rating as high level enemies, but I can actually do this in a tier 7 map against trash mobs. The only mobs that can actually do damage to me and maybe kill me are like really high level mobs, and they are likely rares, uniques. They're like basically the elite mobs. They are the only ones who actually are have the accuracy rating to pierce and actually hit us. And on top of that, if you come across an AoE slam attack or stuff like that, those can kill you. So don't underestimate this, like don't overestimate this build. Understand that AoE slam attacks, especially from elements that you're weak to, like for example, I have quite a bit of fire resistance, cold resist, but I don't have enough chaos and lightning resist. So these two damage, if you see them on the floor or from a slam attack, or the rare monster is one of these types, you do not want to be in their vicinity, and you do want to switch to your ranged attack, which in my case is Storm Wave or something like that. Just keep your distance and you'll be fine. But everything else, like all the trash mobs, all the ranged, creatures that throw daggers at you, darts at you, shoot arrows, bolts of lightning, like all of these random ranged attackers are not going to be able to scratch you. And that feeling is absolutely amazing because now I don't just have 1 extra second to think. I have like 2 extra seconds to do damage and kill everything around me. I can just literally like sweep through mobs and just kill things, and it's the feeling is amazing. And trust me, when you go against bosses, being able to just nuke them down with no fear is one of the best feelings that you can have as a monk, especially knowing that you're kind of soft in the early to mid game. You really got to learn the playstyle, and then you reach a point where you are doing so much damage, but you got to stay alive, and then you figure out that you can do this. You kind of become really broken. Now, how to get here? So let me tell you guys, if you're in the early game, you're likely going to be tackling these nodes: Flow Like Water, Stab Like Mist. You're going to be having Essence of Storm and as Essence of the Mountain. These two are absolutely amazing early in the game because they allow you to freeze and shock enemies. Shock increases your DPS output, and freeze guarantees you, like a free stun. And then you're going to have Crashing Wave, Flow State, Mindful Awareness. So these are the sort of the early game build. You definitely want to get to Moment of Truth because it makes you a start to actually get your crits out. Get conservative casting in the mid game, I would say, because your mana costs are going to go up, especially when you have weapons that give you like a +2 or 3. Your mana cost is going to go up a little bit. Take this, and because this gives you a 4%, 4%, 8%, 16% reduced cost of skills, that's actually huge for the monk because your skills actually don't cost that much, but you just don't have enough mana compared to a full intel build. So these actually really help you to make sure your mana costs stay under control. After that, I would suggest you try to tackle things like Blinding Strike because this thing is free 24% attack damage, and they blind enemies. This is very good, especially when you're going up close against melee enemies. Having them blinded just gives you a little bit more wiggle room to make a decision to dodge or to continue attacking. to back off and whatnot. So the blind really helps. And after that, if possible, please try to take the power charges, because this thing is going to be, essentially your fuel for the early game, because it's going to be doing that electric slam attack that's going to be, requiring a lot of power charges. And even later in the game, you're going to be using charge stuff, which is dependent on power charges. There's one more node here called the power within for power charges. I feel this is the weakest of all the power charge nodes, because you got to take 1, 2, 3 points just to get here. And the points before I give you like power charge duration, which is it's not helpful. You're always consuming power charges, so the duration doesn't really help. And you're also generating enough power charges, so the duration does not help at all. And then when you come here, the 20% increased crit damage bonus is nice, but you're going to get that same 20% from so many other nodes that it's just not good enough. So I would say if you have extra points, you can take this. But otherwise, just ditch it, get these two, and then start tackling some of these other additional wonderful nodes in the middle here. You can get, like 10% attack speed here with the 10 plus 10 strength. You can get another 3 here, 10 damage here, more damage here. Take this one. This is amazing because you'll be on full life most of the time because you're relying on energy shield. So take this. This is pretty good. I did drop this early in the game because I was trying to experiment here and there, and I regretted it. Once I took it back, I felt the different sort of kick in, and it felt amazing again. Take this one, Stylebender. Stylebender is really amazing because when you are up and close and personal with a boss and you're dropping the bell on them, Stylebender will guarantee that you are able to not just freeze them and electrocute them, you also can stun them just by breaking their armor so quickly. This will allow you to perma-stun bosses. It's really broken. And 25% physical damage because why not? And of course, resonance is something you do want to take to work your power charges. So if you're going for your power charge nodes, make sure you have resonance as well online. As soon as you can run combat frenzy, please take it. I believe, yeah, this is like level 14 stone, but I can't remember. Like, so it says requires level 58, but I think you can get this at Act 3, Act 2 or 3, like that. I think sometime there you can already start running Combat Frenzy. You don't have to do the Siphon Strike or whatever, and you can switch to Combat Frenzy. And what this does is when you freeze or electrocute enemies, you gain a Frenzy charge. And this is huge because when you're running Resonance, for you, the Frenzy charge is actually a power charge. But once you get that power charge, they work like any other power charge works. So this allows you to say, so just translates through you gain a power charge when you freeze or electrocute. So that's a huge difference. So once you get Resonance online, you can use Combat Frenzy. You can even run things like Sniper's Mark. So I have it socketed in my Hand of Chayula because when I hit an enemy with the Hand of Chayula, I actually apply my curses and marks. So I'm applying Sniper's Mark to them, and I'm cursing them as well. So it just allows me to use this on bosses because I'm unlikely going to be starting off with a freeze or electrocute on a boss. So Combat Frenzy is reliable on regular mobs, but if you're up against a boss, I use Hand of Chayula, and that allows me to immediately get Sniper's Mark off, do a free, I'm almost guaranteed to crit, but Sniper's Mark allows me to have a 62% increased chance to crit, so why the hell not? Sorry, it gives crit damage bonus, but I will be critting. I'm almost guaranteed to crit because of the sheer amount of crit that I have. So you do more damage, you crit, you get your power charge. Once you get your first power charge up, you're going to get your charge stuff online, and you're just going to obliterate the boss in front of you using freeze, electrocute, and breaking their armor to perma-stun them. There's really no boss that I haven't been able to perma-stun at this point in the game. It's insane. The only real risk you have is being hit by bosses with huge slam attacks, misestimating, mispositioning, and then dying. And that happens quite a bit, trust me. You should take True Strike for the Jugular and Deadly Force when you can, and this makes you even more powerful of a crit demon. These are basically the nodes you need to really just keep critical striking. There's not really much else that fit into the critical strike build. So once you have these, let's focus on the defensive part. So to really be protect me from harm is really the engine of your armor generation. If you look at my monk now, I have 72% armor, 79 evasion. This is insane. Normally you will be able to reach maybe about 20 to 30% armor, but because of this node, despite the 40% less evasion rating, because of the sheer number of evasion nodes I have, I'm able to generate almost 80% evasion and almost 80% armor. So trash mobs can't do anything to me, right? Because that's usually the secondary damage that sort of ranks and it stacks up and you don't realize that it's going to kill you, and it kills you, right? But right now, I just mainly have to be watchful of where I stand and step. And there's nothing from range that's going to come and hit me that can harm me because projectiles is stuff that I can dodge. And if it's physical, I can take it, right? I can totally take it, so it's fine. So yeah, here's what works together with Protect Me from Harm. You have to take this note, Spectral Ward. This gives you an energy shield per evasion rating on your body armor for 12 evasion rating. So this is why I'm saying you need to run a full evasion body armor. On top of this, there's another note here that gives you 100% increased evasion from your body armor. Sound crazy? It is. Because if I take this off, you can see my evasion is 27, my armor is 32. If I pop this on, this gives me 1602 evasion rating, 100% increase, so that's times 2. And that really makes about 9000 evasion rating. And on top of that, I'm also going to get my energy shield from that. So as you can see, it's 600. If I take this off, it's 300. I get 300 energy shield just from my body armor. By the way, it's an evasion body armor. There's no energy shield on it. So this is actually really crazy. Like, you just go full evasion. Only for the body armor. For everything else, I would suggest you to have energy shield on it to top off your energy shield. And that's basically that. And while you're coming down here, make sure you take all these amazing notes that's along this line here. You got to take the 25 dex. You got to take this one, another 30% evasion, 8% increased dexterity. 8% to increase dexterity is crazy because look at my dexterity, it's 300, right? And you would think, so what? So what if I have such high dexterity? Dexterity is useless, right? It just gives me accuracy. Well, there's one note here that will break you because it gives you 1% increased attack speed per 15 dexterity. If you compare that to my dexterity, that's about 20% attack speed. Just from my dexterity, including all the other notes that I have, that's an insane amount of attack speed. Like, just think about it. That's kind of crazy. So, taking Falcon Technique will change your character forever because now your dexterity means a lot more. It's not just accuracy rating, it's now going to contribute to your attack speed. That increases your overall DPS altogether. Now, dexterity becomes king for your character. And then go down here, take this Coming Calamity, and try to run Herald of Ice at least. I do not run Herald of Thunder because for me, I focus more on ice damage than electric damage. Electric damage is actually a part of the damage that I do in Charge Staff. But it's not essential because as you can see, my Ice Strike does already 19k damage and I'm not that high level even. So if you can see here, my lightning damage is about 500. That's enough for me to shock enemies from my Ice Strike. And my Charge Staff actually has Electrocution build up and electrocute enemies. If I were to run an additional Herald here, the additional damage increase is about another 10%. It's not that like 10 to 20% at most. It's not really the 50% it says because of the way it calculates after everything. So I feel like one Herald is enough, and Double Dancer is actually kind of crazy because of the amount of evasion and defenses you get. So I'm running it this way. But of course, if you look at my spirit, I can in fact fit one more Herald and be greedy and maybe get rid of something like Flicker Strike, or run another unset ring. I would say just run one unset ring, which allows you to have one additional skill slot, and just use that to run four heralds and four buffs, and I think that is sufficient. But as I said, I do have enough spirit. If you want to switch out one of your skills, like say, I would recommend maybe Flicker Strike, drop Flicker Strike if you don't like it, and then you can actually run both your heralds, so Herald of Thunder and Ice, and Double Dancer with Combat Frenzy, which is like 5 buffs, and you still have Spirit to spare. So hey, it's pretty amazing, this build. I think I've enjoyed it quite a bit. And once you're done getting all of these amazing notes, get this free dem slot here and then come into your quarterstaff build. And I think here you'll find another amazing note, which is one with the river, which gives you 30% increased defenses. It doesn't say anything here, but when I checked what the defenses does is it actually tops off my evasion armor, and it also grants me energy shield. So these are the 3 things that it sort of adds to. It doesn't do anything to my block. It didn't do anything to my resistances. I didn't see any differences there. So it's energy, shield, armor, and evasion. All great things to be increased. And it says 30%, but I actually feel like 30% it's not exactly the 30%. I don't know how the calculations work in the background, but I feel like it actually did like a 10 to 15% difference, which is fine. I think it's still a huge difference. 10%, I'll take it. Hey. And it gives you, days free stun build up. even more chances to perma-stun your bosses, so why the hell not? And here's a cool tip for new players. If you guys are not sure, let's say you're going down a path like this, you have crit chance and crit damage bonus. You're not sure which one's going to improve your character more. Hold shift and you can see your damage changes. So normal strike from 19,000 goes to 19.4. And if I take crit damage bonus from 19,000, it goes to 19.5. So for me, I know the crit damage bonus is going to be more beneficial, so I'd rather take that. So that's just something for you to compare. But if you already have a node active and you hold shift, it actually shows you the numbers if you were to take that same node again, so don't get confused. And if you don't know how to inspect the values individually, hold alternate, and you can actually click on an element. The pop-up stays open for you to read through, and you can continue to do this process to just keep opening up boxes, and then read through them as much as you like. So this is where I found myself at this point in the game. I feel like from here I want to just get one with the storm as soon as I can to get that additional power charge consumption feeling, because I ditched this one. Yeah, I think why the hell not rather get that, get some crit damage bonuses there, because these each give 18%, which is kind of huge. Once I'm done with that, I'm going to go down, get this jewel socket here. On the way, I'm going to get reaching strike, which will increase my melee strike range and my attack speed. And if I don't feel like this, like if I don't want the attack speed and the accuracy, because I'm getting enough attack speed. Quite frankly, I think I'm having more than enough attack speed. So instead of getting another 1-2 to this, I can also go 1-2 here and probably get unhindered, which will increase my movement speed and reduce slowing potency of debuffs. Of course, you can have a charm that works to ignore slows and whatever. That also works. You can also go down this side, which gives you a lot more crit damage, a lot more crit chance. Also kind of crazy. Over here, you have electrocuted enemies have increased damage taken. I would say don't take this because you're not electrocuting, like you are electrocuting quite often, but not that often. So it's not very reliable. You rather go down this path here, this swirly thing here, and it has some amazing notes here. You have Pierce for cold, Pierce for lightning, and then just sheer freeze buildup, shock buildup, elemental damage all the way. And then the center here gives you 15% increased damage for each elemental ailment. So you're generally going to have two ailments, which is freeze and shock. You could also have electrocution on them. You could also have what do you call this, burning on them, because I do believe passively I have a little bit of wait, did I have fire damage? No, I don't have fire damage. Maybe my belt is. Yeah, you could have ignite on one of these just to have them ignited, just for it to count as an ailment. Like that works. But generally, let's just say you get 30% increased damage for each, 30% increased damage in total when you have all the elemental ailments on an enemy. This works absolutely fine, so you can go for this. But don't underestimate attack speed. So, go for Falcon technique first. If you're halfway here, you can't reach this node. You can spec into harness the elements and then spec out of it to get to this point faster. I feel Falcon technique is a much more powerful offensive boost compared to harness the elements. There's also a few more elemental nodes up here. More damage if you have chilled, more damage if you have shocked. And these are pretty great too. I feel that they also work quite well. I did try those as well, though I wanted to really reach the Herald increase because those increases are pretty huge, and the quarterstaff sounds kind of fun, so I'm experimenting with this. But yeah, this is the build that I'm currently sitting at. I walked you through how to get to this. Now let me show you guys what my skills and builds look like. I was starting off with Tempest Fury, and I really went Tempest Fury all the way. Like I really dedicated myself to lightning damage, only to later realize that freezing enemies is much more crazy because you can freeze them quite often. It stuns them. You can shatter them, and on top of all of that, it's not just a perma stun, but Ice Strike actually allows you to dash to attack your enemy. It gives you like a mini dash. Now, early in the game, you might be afraid of mini dashing because that might put you in a situation where you just die. But when you're a freaking tank like I am, you really want to be dashing into your enemies and just wiping through them as fast as you can, because that massively improves your DPS because you're constantly hitting enemies and killing them. And it feels amazing. Like, trust me, as a melee character, that's exactly the kind of power fantasy you would have. It's just rushing through enemies and just destroying them like a freight train, right? So, yeah, the monk can do that, and Ice Strike, I feel, made this build a little bit better. I use Martial Tempo, Concentrated Effect, primal armament, and then over here I have, as you can see, cold damage, physical damage, lightning damage, all combined here. Allows me to both break armor, shock enemies, freeze enemies, stun them, and over here with charge stuff, I have perpetual charge, electrocute. So this is what actually gives me electrocution. Momentum, because you will be moving 2 meters very frequently, so 40% free damage there, and elemental focus because I have an extra slot for it. And this one gives me about 1.4k damage, and if you're moving around, it's the extra 40%, that's about 2. Comes to about 2.6k in total, I think, roughly, when I see myself moving around with everything running. It's about 2.6k additional damage on top of the ice strike. So I can get ice strike up to 30k damage easily, and then there's critical damage as well. So it's kind of broken. And let's see, Tempest Bell, of course, essential, boss killer. Magnified effect, overpower, neural overload. If you are surrounded by enemies, just drop this thing down and go ham on it. Everything dies around you. Just don't get caught in a situation where the ground has some kind of a poison effect or something, or chaos effect, and you're just dying without looking at your life bar. If you see your energy shield go down, just duck out of there. Dash out of there, jump out of there, do whatever the hell you gotta do. Reposition yourself properly and pick your fights. Do not rush into a fight. Knowing when to do that is the most important thing for a melee character. And once you figure that out, all this tankiness thing is just a quality of life feature, and it really, really helps you. Storm Wave, great for me for backing off from enemies or to just get some little bit of shock in there. 100% chance to shock, so it's a guaranteed shock, extra damage, and 12% life recovered when I kill an enemy with this. So if I have my charge stuff online and I don't want to rush in with Ice Strike, I will be just Storm Waving enemies from the distance, and it works really well. It's a lot of damage as well, and as I'm healing from enemies, I can pick my fights and then jump back in when I want to, as I said. Hand of Chayula, I'm using it to dash in to hit enemies, especially bosses. It gives me a little bit of chaos damage because I don't know why not. Then I mark the enemies. I have lightning exposure. Actually, cold exposure is a little bit better for my build, but I have lightning on it. I have freezing mark as well, so increase freeze build up, especially in bosses. Once you mark them with this, you'll be freezing them almost instantly. Flicker Strike is crazy. Flicker Strike, I think, is one of the true endgame skills that you should have as a monk, and it's really fun to use, which is why I ditched an entire Herald just for this skill, because Flicker Strike actually does more damage than 50% increase with Herald. It's kind of crazy. Let me explain to you. 2 additional times you dash and strike an enemy per power charge. I have about 6. You can get 7 power charges if you have the power within, and if you have one of the storm, it counts as 8, right? So let's just say you have 6. 6 times 2, that's 12. So that's about 3.4k, 3.5k, 12 times, which is absolutely insane. That's like 30 to almost 40,000 damage, right? So you're doing 40,000 damage from this single skill if it's fully charged. And on top of that, I run Ambush, which is 100% more crit chance against enemies around full life. I have increased crit damage bonus with less crit hit chance, and I generate combo, so I get 40% more damage. So if you're running through a map and you have this thing charged up and you have your charge stuff online and you hit the button for Flicker Strike, you just swipe the screen. You see the screen just go clean and just items just drop everywhere. It's crazy, right? And you might think that's nothing. A mage can do that. I get it. Okay, melee inferiority. Okay, this is where we are. Okay, just step into reality for a moment and understand. Playing melee in Path of Exile is hard mode, okay? But we're having fun in it, which is why we're doing it. It's out of respect for the true OGs in the game, all right? So here, let's just get back to this. So Flicker Strike, really, really fun skill. And I ditched a Herald for this. If you guys want to switch this out and play your Heralds, that's absolutely fine. But let me tell you, Flicker Strike has put me in positions where I've died because I just Flicker Strike through the map and found myself in a boss that's just charging for a large AoE attack. It explodes and I die. So really funny when that happens. But, I have fun with it. It's a real gamble sometimes, and I like it. Yeah, Combat Frenzy, Profusion, Precision, Clarity, Herald of Ice, Cold Infusion, Cold Penetration, and Cold Mastery. If you're running Herald of Thunder, run the other Mastery skill with the other Penetration, with the other Infusion. It's up to you, actually. You can mix and match. You can see how the DPS changes, and then decide how much damage you want to go with each skill. So I just put the highest DPS stuff that I can fine on the skill that I use more frequently, which is my Ice Strike, which is why you can see I can do a lot of damage here. You could also have those on your Storm Wave and do ridiculous amounts of damage on Storm Wave. So yeah, you can figure it out. And then I run Wind Dancer with a blind, so that when the Wind Dancer explodes on the melee enemies, I blind them. And on top of that, I maim them. So I really cripple the enemies around me when my Wind Dancer actually triggers. So although I lose all of the evasion when Wind Dancer triggers, and I hit the enemies around me, I I also maim them and blind them, which is kind of crazy. And then I have more stun threshold when this is active, so I rarely get stunned. And then I have Ghost Dance. Ghost Dance gives I use fast forward for it because it lowers the duration between ghost shouts. As you can see, it's 2.5. Take this out, 3.9. So it's better with it. Cannibalism, 4% life on kill while this is active. It just works across all your skills, so just keep it on. Vitality, probably the weakest part of this. I would say 1% life per second is nothing special because you're already getting 4% life on kill, and you have many other ways to regenerate, and 1% life is not a big deal. You can just hit your flask. So I would say if you're not running Vitality, because it's cost 20 Spirit, which is kind of expensive, take it out, run another Herald, ditch another skill, or as I said, run double Unset with the Herald of Thunder as well. So yeah, but here's another big priority at this point in the game, which is resistances. So on top of working this build with your armor and evasion, you feel great, you have your energy shield, all that is doing well. You can still just die to an enemy doing a specific elemental damage. So you really want to make sure that your equipment has sufficient elemental resistances, because at this point in the game, I think you'll have like -40 in like each like resistance. Like if I just take off my equipment, I do think I'll have like -40 resistances. Yeah, it's -40. That's the amount of resist I'll have. So as you can see, it's kind of crazy. So at this point in the game, if you don't have any equipment, you have -40 resistance. So put my weapon on, that doesn't give me anything. Helmet gives me other stuff. This one also doesn't give me any resistances. Wait, this one gave me cold? No, wait. Oh, this one has some cold resist. Okay, has some cold resist. This doesn't give me anything. Doesn't give me anything. This has a lot of resistance on it, so that really helps. This has a little bit of resist, a lot of resist, and that tops me off. So yeah, I am working on getting back more lightning resist. I could put another what do you call this, rune here, whatever you call this, rune, right? Yeah, to actually get a bit more resist. And trust me, you at least want 10% on everything, or at least just non-negative. Negative is where you gotta be careful. Like now, I know that my lightning resist is negative, so when I see a lightning enemy, I just gotta know, like, remind myself to be extra careful and keep my distance and not rush into it. Because the -20 can kill you. Like that's the difference between life and death. Trust me. If you're in the negative zone, you take so much damage that you can die. And especially if the enemy pierces, you might not realize it, but some enemies can pierce right through your shield into your life. And if the enemy just does like 1,000 damage twice, I'm dead. And some rare enemies can do that. Like you'll be fine against bosses because you know they're predictable, but against random rare enemies, you don't know what kind of additional buffs that they will have, and they sometimes could have the buff that says pierce, extra damage, critical damage bonuses, and then you just die. So yeah, you just gotta look out for strange stuff like that. So that's my other advice, resistances. As for the equipment itself, here's my gear. Headgear, I would say look for a gear that has at least 50% increased on the gear stats. So 50% increase, like this is 70% increased evasion, energy shield, something like that's fine. At least 50%. I got an amazing armor, 100% increase. I just took it. This is a no, like, there's no question. I'm 100 guaranteed taking this. This is insane. And stun threshold on top of that, and dexterity. So why not? And again, for us, dexterity matters because dexterity means attack speed. So that's great. Then I got just some extra rarity here and there. I hate rarity in this game. I think it really has to be, like, GGG really has to rework the whole rarity thing, because right now it just makes players want to spend time looking for gear with rarity, and that means that I just have this pain in the back of my mind where I got to make sure every gear has this specific stat called rarity, just so that I have a higher chance of getting better gear, because right now I'm not able to get good gear a lot of the time, and that's something that I think not everyone struggles with, because it really depends on your luck. And I personally didn't buy any equipment. I just played the game and I got all of these, and then I gambled it with the all the currency that I have. So I got all these currency items. I just used those, figured out what I could get. I had to sell a whole bunch of stuff because not everything turned out the way I liked. But hey, I got lucky in a few things. 134% increased physical damage, 100% increased evasion rating, 45% increased rarity, but that's about it. Everything else is just simple stuff, nothing crazy or unusual. Stuff that you can farm and get. I think this is a good belt, by the way. It's just like 25% increased charm and 23% increased charm. So that's about 50% increased charm charges gained, which is crazy because I'm using the increased rarity of items on the charm, and so I almost always have this maxed out because of the belt. So it really makes me kind of happy to know that it works really, really well. But yeah, that's general stuff that I can speak about for the build that I have on this monk. And if you guys have checked out my videos, thanks for that. And also, have fun playing Exiles. I think this game has been amazing. Melee is, yes, a little bit of a challenge, but I think that's where the fun is. And I would say they don't really have to buff melee to be as strong as the range classes. I think instead just make the build more fun. Like make it such that the bosses also target ranged characters who stand far away with unique skills, right? That they only use against ranged characters. Just make it more, like more challenging. You don't have to buff or nerf any specific class because I do think that as a monk, I'm actually doing a lot of damage and I am pretty tanky and all that. It's just that the mechanics of it is what really, limits us. Like if you get hit by a slam attack, as I said, an elemental slam, like a lightning AoE slam attack, that's not going to be blocked by evasion. That's not going to be blocked by armor. It's just going to cut through our, and it's just going to obliterate our energy shield and life. Like 2000 is nothing, right? And again, I'm not that high level. I know people with like 10,000 life and whatever. You can get there for sure, right? But at this point in the game, I'm able to do tier 7 maps. I'm level 77, and I do want to go and actually, I've been lazy about the whole Waystone, like the trial thing. I've had so much Waystones collected. I probably should do another trial and get a few more points on the Ascendancy. But I really wanted to talk about this points first before I proceeded to the next Ascendancy. So that I don't change my mind too much and all of that. But that's it for me for this one. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one and take care. Happy New Year as well.